Welcome, everybody, to Chronicles of a Dallas County Democrat. I am your host, AZ Zion. In this podcast, we interview local activists and see how they got to where they are today. And in today's episode, we have Community Movement Builders of Dallas Fort Worth Coordinator, Yafeuh Balogun. Yafeuh, say hi.
How's everybody doing today?
All right, Yafeuh, so give us a little introduction about yourself with the audience.
Yes. I think the important thing to mention about me is the importance that I believe in family, and so I'm a married man, and I have 5 children. That's most important to me, and that's what I work near and dear every single day of my life for, obviously to protect and provide for. In addition to that, as I was stating, is that I had awesome parents. My father, Abdullah Shamsuddin, my mother, uh, great individual. Obviously, you can see her in the background there on my wall. And so as I said, I had an awesome childhood, which has kind of helped me up until this point today.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Redbird, and if anybody's familiar with Redbird Country Club, that's where I grew up at, and I spent so many days jumping over fences and grabbing golf balls from guys that was playing golf at the country club. And I even saw Tiger Woods as a child play at this golf course. And so that's where I grew up at. And, nice neighborhood, middle class neighborhood I grew up in. And my mother and my father, they bought that house before I was born in 1980. And when I came around, that's how I grew up.
Well, not a lot of activists in Dallas have seen Tiger Woods play golf as a kid, so that's definitely a badge for you. What did your parents do for work when you were young?
My father, he worked at South Star Logistics, which is the parent company of Kroger. He was a middle management transportation manager. So he would take trips to stores or whatnot and travel around the country and to manage the stores of Kroger and also coordinate, how the transportation, the 18 wheelers or whatnot moved across the country. So he would make sure that they were on time, make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to do. And so that's kind of what he did for work. And my mother, she worked at Southwestern Bell. I think eventually became AT&T. She also was a manager there as well. And so I saw a lot of benefit in that and saw that how they both were able to sort of navigate the corporate America, if you will. And my mother, she did a great job as well. And I remember going on so many of those company picnics and company trips and all those things associated with Southwestern Bell. And she mainly just kept a great smile, a great attitude about herself, and both of them together really did a great job with me and my sister, my older sister.
Now, navigating corporate America as Black people is a challenge, especially back then. But I
Right.
want to especially highlight your mother,
hmm
who worked at Southwestern Bell back then,
hmm
which is obviously a STEM, a technical company. How was it for her?
Uh, I think uh, I think she had some great experiences. I think she was able to provide for us, and of course she likes to spend money, so she likes to take trips or whatnot. And so we had a great experience. And like I said, she would bring me to the office sometimes as a kid, and I would see where she worked at and some of the people that she worked with and some of the folks that she managed. And I would talk to them, and they would always smile and have a great time with me. And so I feel like she was, obviously able to navigate it successfully. Obviously, with that being stated, it comes with some challenges, obviously. Um, but she was able to do it. And I think it was based upon her skill, it was based upon her intelligence, and also, have her ability to, if you will, kind of be a chameleon. I think if you're going to deal with corporate America, you have to sometimes not necessarily show your feelings sometimes. And sometimes when people show their feelings in corporate America, it's not oftentimes looked at in the best light, so to speak. And so she was able to navigate that, had a nice experience. Ultimately, at some point, towards the end of my childhood, towards the middle of my teenage experience, she was able to leave AT&T and try her own business ventures. And I think that's what I would say that a lot of folks should be trying to do today is not necessarily try to make these corporate entities wealthy and rich and whatnot, but have something for themselves where they can spend more time developing themselves personally, have more time, not necessarily dedicated to these corporate masters, if you will. But with all that being stated, I think that they did a really great job in terms of being patient with me, my sister, and I had an older brother too. I don't want to not mention my older brother. He's considerably older than me. He was born probably in 1967 or something like that. He's way older than me for sure.
So I definitely see a through line between your parents and you, kind of navigating corporate America, but also not wanting to be a corporatist, if you will, in some way. Did your parents ever mention how, I guess, the real world was after you would graduate from school?
Yeah, no, I heard it all throughout childhood, and I had a really great relationship with my father in that regards because he would sit me down and have these conversations with me, and tell me what to do and what not to do. And I come to find out when I got old enough, when I ran across those exact situations, some of those situations, even though I was told not to do it, I still did it, and I still, in some ways still having to pay the price to this very day. But at least someone had a conversation and told me. I didn't have to learn this information on the fly or whatnot. So I kind of got an idea of the good, the bad, and what not to do based upon those careful instructions that was given to me by both parents. Really, my mother, she would discipline me. My father would discipline me. They wouldn't necessarily do it in a way that wasn't good, but doing it in a way that kind of reinforced that conversation if they had to take it that far. And so that was my experience. And so me and my sister especially. And so more so with me because as a child I would oftentimes get in trouble, not necessarily bad trouble, but trouble in a mischievous sense. I was a class clown. So I tried to make folks laugh and enjoy themselves and all that sort of stuff as a kid. And so yeah, they kept their finger on me for an extended period of time for sure.
And I also understand that your dad was a military vet in Vietnam. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad, he told me a few times, about his experience in Vietnam. First off, my father, he was 15 years old when he attempted to go to the Cotton Bowl and watch football games at Cotton Bowl. And he told me about times he tried to hop the fence or whatnot, or whatnot, or just listen near the fence of where the Cotton Bowl was. He talked about oftentimes of having to go through the back door to be served food, and this is here in Dallas, Texas, of course. And in all of that, he decided that he wanted to do something different. So at the age of 15, he decided to join Job Corps. He joined Job Corps because he believed that what was going on at the particular time, as far as his brothers and sisters and just what was going on in the community in general probably wasn't the best interest. So he wanted something different. Believe it or not, in 1965, 64, 65, he went to Job Corps and they took him to Wyoming. And so he imagine if you've been to Wyoming now, I think it's a lily white location. And no offense, no pun intended there, but you can only imagine in 1964, 65, 66, what Wyoming was like then. And so they taught him necessary skills that he needed in order to learn some hands-on skills, which what he was looking for. He was looking to escape what he felt was going on here in the city of Dallas at that time. Uh, Shortly thereafter, when he was 16 years old, he attempted to join the United States Marines, and so he lied to the draft board. And so my father, his birth name is Herman Goodson. That's his birth name, Herman Goodson. He went to the draft board and whatnot and put an S in front of it. And he told him that his name was Sherman Goodson, and he made up the appropriate age that he needed to be. And of course, it was the crazy megalomaniac warmongers that the United States government has been for for since forever, of course, they accepted him because he was an able body and a willing vessel to go to Vietnam. And so, at 17 years old, he experienced being in combat and whatnot, and actually got shot in the face, or at least some shrapnel. Got hit with shrapnel in the face at 17 years old.
Uh, let's take probably a half a step back. Perhaps you mentioned your dad, going through back doors to get served and going to the Cotton Bowl, which is in South Dallas. For those who are not very familiar with Dallas, did your dad or did your parents ever kind of talk to you and your siblings about racism? And if they did, how did that
Yeah.
affect you
Oh
guys?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They definitely had those conversations with me. You got to remember, I'm a little older than uh than a lot of folks, and so I remember Rodney King happening. And I remember the conversations around that. I remember another big one aside from Rodney King was the O.J. Simpson trial. That was another big conversation at the time. And so I was in elementary school. Not only was it my parents that had these conversations with me, it was the teachers. I went to Adel Turner Elementary School, right? And it was a group of teachers, Miss Shirley Black, Miss Gardner, Miss Allen, and Miss Pruitt, that would have these conversations with us. And so I had these conversations not only with my parents, but also with the teachers at Adel Turner Elementary. Um, with that being stated, a lot of folks may be familiar, and if you're not familiar, is that we successfully renamed College Park in honor of Fahim J. Minka. Well, I met Fahim J. Minka in elementary school. Okay, so we had an entire community that at that time that was very supportive, and so we would watch these Black history sort of products or shows, I should say, the Eye on the Prize. I don't know if folks be familiar with Eye on the Prize. I know older folks may be familiar with Eye on the Prize, but it's a whole series talking about the movement of the civil rights. And so going back to my parents, with my parents when my parents being active to a degree in locally here in the city of Dallas, it relates to the movement. Uh, they were able to have these conversations with me about what was going on as far as race relations and whatnot, their experience of going through the back door. My father talked about his experience in the Marine Corps, some of the experiences that he had there, which wasn't always great. uh, Combat has a way of kind of making folks more unified because you realize that you can die any day or any moment, especially in a place like Vietnam at that particular time, where he saw many of his friends and comrades, if you will, shot down justifiably for invading Vietnam or whatnot. But no, we had plenty of conversations. He would sit down, talk with me, tell me about his childhood, tell me about being in Wyoming in the mid '60s, talk about Vietnam, talk about coming home in 1969, joining the Nation of Islam, and staying true to that from his perspective of what that was as far as being a Black man in America. I think folks at that particular time were trying to identify what it was to be Black in America at that particular time, whether they joined the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, Republic of New Africa, uh, any student nonviolent coordinating committee, SCLC, NAACP. A lot of folks was trying to figure out what it meant, and so just based upon their experience, you had varying degrees of interactions where folks decided to go one way or the other. And him and my mother just decided their path, which was to the nation at that particular time. But other folks like Mr. Fahim Minka, whom at that again I knew since elementary school, he chose the Black Panther Party for his expression. But either way, um, it was a community collective thing that I want to say that we were insulated, protected by, that we had these conversations, which, still obviously affects me to this very day. Because again, we renamed a park in honor of Fahim J. Minka here just recently.
Absolutely. I'm going to get to Fahim J. Menka Park in a little bit. I actually find it fascinating that your teachers in school kind of wanted to bring about that Black identity back in those
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
which I think is amazing. I don't have kids, so I'm not familiar with what's going on in schools nowadays. But did you find that your classmates, that your friends in school, kind of shared the same passion that you did in activism?
Uh, it's hard to say. I would say we all was introduced to it. There that was. Uh, I watched Eye on the Prize in the fourth grade, or fourth or fifth grade in Miss Shirley Black's class at Adel Turner Elementary, and she introduced me to Fred Hampton. So I knew about Fred Hampton in the fifth grade based upon the Eye on the Prize documentary. From from that, Miss Shirley Black would make us write a page or two about what it is that we saw in that particular episode, and we had conversations about it. Now, the thing of it is, I don't think they're doing that now. I do have children, and they're not having those conversations in schools about Fred Hampton. Like, imagine having a conversation about Fred Hampton at school, right? And so we had these conversations, and I was intrigued by Fred Hampton because I saw the level of organization that he had, the impact that he had. A 21-year-old individual had more impact than perhaps an adult, right, or a maturing adult at that particular time. He had more influence on his community than someone that's been around for some time or in some elected capacity. So that was the conversation, and I can say that some of my friends, some of the Minka daughters, Zakia, Minka, others, we were there and we was having those conversations. And a little later, I come to find out that obviously in her family they was having those same conversations. And so I think the goal of our experience in school at that particular time was trying to prepare us for what's kind of going on now, to help us be strong, help us be independent, attempt to help us make wise decisions, help us to be politically active, politically aware, at least kind of know what's going on, so that we can do our best part for the next generation, in which that's what we desire to do at this point.
Absolutely. Now, you said your dad joined the military, went to Vietnam, and later joined the Nation of Islam. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things there, but what, how was the military career for your dad? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed like he got radicalized as he came back to the States. So, how
Yes.
was his experience there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what happened is my father was corresponding with his family members. And so the thing about my family is that a number of individuals at that particular time, my uncles and aunts joined the Nation of Islam. So it wasn't just, it was, I had like three or four uncles and aunts that kind of joined at the same time, along with my mother too. So they was corresponding, and he was having that correspondence. And that's how that initially started for him, I think. And he often described to me just how the interactions between Black Marines versus white Marines took place, especially prior to the combat experience. He said that he saw some of the people that he was very close to, obviously, get killed, get their leg blowed off, or the limbs separated from their body, and he saw that up close and personal. He, like I say, even to the extent that he got got some shrapnel in his face. So he, fortunately, he was very intelligent about how he was able to transition. Some folks that were at that particular time come back from Vietnam wasn't able to transition successfully back into society. He was able to do so, and he was able to keep his mind. One habit that he did pick up while he was in Vietnam was smoking. And so that was, I guess, that's part of the stress that he dealt with in Vietnam. And so that was something that he did kind of carry with him for the remainder of his life. But but all in all, I would say that uh, he, towards the end, was very somewhat critical of the U.S. military and their operations in Vietnam. And so he wanted to make sure that he told us about it versus hearing it from, let's just say, recruiters who come to your high school and try to get you in the army and all that kind of stuff. And so he was very smart about that.
And what would he tell you and your siblings about it?
What he did was out of necessity, right? Because as I mentioned, he left home at 15 years old, right? Now you think about an average 15-year-old now. They're not leaving home and trying to figure out the world. He left home and tried to figure out the world at 15. Again, he went to Wyoming and spent a considerable amount of time in Wyoming, which is probably somewhat remote now. It's definitely remote in the 60s, right? And then from that, out of necessity, he went and joined the Marines. But it was all because he wanted to have a different experience and create a different situation for his family. I forever salute him. I always tell his story as a part of my story because I want to make sure that his story obviously lives on because that was a great sacrifice that he did so that my older sister and my brother, they didn't have to do certain things that he had to experience, right? Because he had done it for us. And so a lot of things become a lot easier for us, and so that's something similar that that I'm working to try to make it for my kids as well. Is that the little things in life can be a little bit easier because the previous generation has already labored to that degree. So that's what he did
Absolutely.
successfully.
Absolutely. Do you remember your first sort of venture into activism? What did you do?
My first venture in activism, which was with Eric Caffrey. We was driving on West Wheatland Road, and if anybody been to West Wheatland Road, at the Home Depot on West Wheatland, that was my first protest. There was a gentleman on the inside that was working at Home Depot and that was upset about the payment, and how the hourly and how they was treating the employees. And so this had to be about 2002. Uh, and we was driving by and we saw him standing outside with a sign. And so me and Eric, we decided to park, and we got out and asked him did he have an extra sign, and he gave us an extra sign, and we protested with him. That was my actually my very first protest, was I guess workers' rights, right? Because it was very important for him and for the other employees to have some say so about what's going on with their experiences. And so that was a beautiful thing for us to actually have experienced that. Um, and every time that we would coordinate with them, we would come out there. Now you just got to know that back then communication was a little bit difficult than what it is now. So we would have to try to catch him when we could, and so we was out there with him about 4 or 5 times when we seen him.
Did that make you get the bug for activism and protesting, or did you kind of experience kind of a lull, or did you take a break after that?
No, I actually got the bug in about 11th grade again. I had I had went and lived with my uncle at the time, Asadi Shamsuddin. I had went and lived with him for a period of time. And during that time, I became introduced more so with the content of Malcolm X. And I had read Malcolm X's autobiography in 11th grade, and I was actually studying another anthropologist historian by the name of Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen. I began to study those two individuals closely, and then my uncle would detail to me his history. He joined the Nation of Islam, but then he converted after 1975, after the death of Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He converted to Sunni Islam. And so he became a practitioner of Orthodox Islam. And so he would educate me about all of that. And this is in 11th grade. And so all of that is really kind of what got me going at this particular point, honestly.
And are you yourself a member of the Nation of Islam or Islam?
Not particular. I'm not very religious. I'm a supporter of freedom, justice, and equality. I'm a supporter. I will say this, that the Nation of Islam, um, as well as Masjid al-Islam, because I'm close with the Nation of Islam and I'm close with Masjid al-Islam. They have always been supportive of my family, particularly at the janazas of my family, the janazah of my father, my uncles. My When I mention Asadi Shamsuddin, I also have to mention my other uncle, uh, Hanif Shamsuddin, Kenneth Goodson. Hassan, excuse me, Hassan Shamsuddin, Kenneth Goodson, that they, both organizations participated in their janazas, my cousins as well. So I'm very supportive of the Dallas brand of Islam. Very much so supportive.
Now, for those who don't know, janaza, explain that real quickly.
Funeral, the funeral process, and the washing of the body. and the prayers or whatnot that's given, the funeral rites that's given. I've with my uncle, I don't mind saying it so publicly. I've taken a lot of pride in the fact that he's the one that brought my father's side of the family to Islam and introduced it. And some of my cousins, they are more and more open to the idea, with information with Sunni Islam and whatnot, because of him. And he introduced it to my father, his brothers, and then they introduced it to their wives. And so that's how it is. But he was the person that more so opened our eyes to it. And so I forever salute him for that sacrifice that he gave.
Now, what is the Nation of Islam in Islam? What do those faiths teach that make it so attractive to people?
So the Nation of Islam gives you a black experience. It puts a black experience on Islam. And so that's the biggest I think is the difference between Orthodox Islam. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but the biggest difference is that it puts a black face or a black experience on Islam as something at that particular time. You have to understand this occurred in 1930, and so folks were trying to secure an identity, but also have some pride about who they were as a people. And in addition to that, if there was any contradictions that existed in the community, the Nation of Islam, more so than any other organization in America, clean folks up out for drugs, prostitution, and whatnot. And through the Imam Warafuddin Muhammad, brought the largest conversion of black folks to Islam in the world. I think Imam Wardeen brought the biggest conversion of black folks to Islam after the passing of his father, again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So for me, I've had many conversations with folks on both sides, and they choose one or the other. Usually, one side says something highly critical of the other side, etc. I see it as a part of the path of growth, a starting point and then as an ending point, right? And so I see it as a part of the process. That's personally how I see it for self development, from starting from the Nation of Islam, and sometimes folks end up practicing Orthodox Islam. That's a natural progression. That's a beautiful thing. Whatever works for that particular person, I feel personally between them and God. Now, again, I'm not a religious person, so I'm not necessarily the authority to speak upon it. But what I can tell you is that these two groups, the Nation of Islam and those that participate in our Islam, have been very supportive of my family for my entire life. And that's something that I think that we are absolutely grateful for.
Sure. And I grew up in Orthodox Islam as well. And I learned about the Nation of Islam actually watching like Muhammad Ali documentaries
Right,
and Elijah Muhammad. And
right.
so I was like, oh, that's cool. We got black Muslims in America. That's pretty cool. so, so I was a kid when this happened, but whatever.
Right, right,
um,
right.
you did mention a few activists, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, and others. What were some of your favorite growing up, and what did each one of those bring?
Uh, for me, it was always Malcolm. That's who I heard about. It was Marcus Garvey. Later, it was Huey P. Newton. Um, and it was those that were more so on the liberation side. Obviously, that's kind of what I've been known for. I'm more of on the liberation side of the struggle of the movement, and that doesn't work in contradiction to others who may have been part of SCLC or NAACP. I see it as those kind of groups have to figure out how to work together on common ground, right? On common issues. And I think once we realize what everybody brings to the table, there will be some solutions. I did have an opportunity to grow a relationship with Malcolm X's grandson, um, Malcolm Shabazz. And so when he would come to Dallas prior to his death, there times that he would come spend time with those that are affiliated with myself, and we would offer him a measure of protection, a place to stay and whatnot. And he oftentimes would spend time with folks up in Richardson, and Najee is up in Richardson, and in those places as well. So um, that's my experiences. I think by far for me though, Fred Hampton was probably the biggest influence upon my political perspective, because he had the ability to try to bring everybody together. They formed the Rainbow Coalition. I think we need a Rainbow Coalition today, right? I think we need to be able to bring different folks even from different political perspectives together in order to create solutions for this community. I think we all really we want the same things, right? But we just have a different way of going about getting it. And so I think that's something that Fred Hampton was able to successfully do for his short period, 21 years on the planet, right? He was probably the biggest influence on me as far as my politics, and that's kind of that's kind of the way I see things today.
Absolutely. I was interviewing Olinka Green recently on this show as well, and she stated that Fred Hampton was also one of her
Yeah,
biggest influences. And you're
absolutely.
right. It is insane. He was 21 years old. Like, I don't know any 21-year-old nowadays who would take that sort of responsibility. But
Right.
do you think something was lost, or was it easier back then to build a sort of rainbow coalition, as you stated? People of different backgrounds, political views, and what have you, as you know, more than it is today. What do you think kind of changed since then, or if it hasn't changed?
I think we do have the ability to do it, but we just got to prioritize it. I think it's easy for us to become sensationalized with the '60s. We have to understand that they had their own problems, even at that particular time, misogyny. Uh, a lot of things took place in the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, women's rights movement that folks are not proud of. We oftentimes hear a sanitized version of what happened at that particular time, a clean version, and so we try to compare ourselves to that clean version when there's no comparison. I think we have the right tools, and I think that we at this particular time are more internationally connected, more so than even at that particular time by way of communication. We can easily communicate with someone over in Gaza quickly, right? And understand what's going on in Gaza quicker than what we can now. I think we could understand what's going on in Sudan and other parts of Africa and other parts of the world very much so quicker, Congo or whatnot, more so quicker. So I think that we have the ability to inform, we have the ability to communicate, we have the ability to show solidarity, as some folks have shown some solidarity with Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, these types of places that have been demonized by the United States government, the United States criminal government. And so I think we more so have an advantage. I know we oftentimes we read books or whatnot and study Fred Hampton, and so we try to compare ourselves. But I think we were built for this particular time. We have the objective to go forward, and I think that folks will hold this government, the United States government, to the fire.
Do you think we as a people share enough solidarity with people outside of our group, either here in the United States or around the world? What's your thoughts on that?
Think that folks have opened up their eyes to the international community just by way of social media. I think that folks have become very much so aware, even though this current administration, the Trump administration, does its absolute best to try to keep what's going on around the world, keep the United States citizens in the blind as best they can. Uh, even with that, folks are opened up to kind of what's going on with the Israeli government, right, in Israel, right. Even folks on the right are even open to that conversation. Ironically, we've been saying for years that the Zionist is obviously very different than a person that practiced the Jewish faith, right? These are two separate things, right? So I want to be clear with that. So um, And so folks are more so now open to the idea or the dangers of Zionism and what that has meant for the world. That we're trying to figure out, is the United States government a proxy of Israel, or is Israel a proxy of the United States government? We're trying to figure that out. Either way, we know that our tax dollars go to Israel. We know that our tax dollars give them free education. We know that our tax dollars give them free healthcare. We know that we don't have free education here in the United States. We know that we don't have free education or free healthcare here in the United States. And so I think folks are more or less paying very close attention to that, especially in the scenario where we're dealing with the midterm elections, right? I think the midterm elections will very much show the influence that the Israeli lobbyists have on the politics in America, particularly here in the city of Dallas with Miriam Adelson, right? Because she's funding a lot of campaigns, you know, particularly to try to be pro-Israel, or I should say pro-Zionist, if you will. And so I think folks have woken up to that. I see it in the comment section, even on the right and the left. That's something that folks agree on at this particular point for the most part. And so we definitely want to end Zionism, but we want to make sure that Jewish folks have a right to practice their religion, and it's a separate thing. So I just want to be clear with that.
Kind of a broad question, and I'm gonna just let you have at it. Why has the United States government been so, I don't know if subservient is the right word, but I'm just gonna go along with that, to the Israeli government?
I think Netanyahu and other folks, they have a hold on this government. That's I'm not sure if it's religious or whatnot, or if that's the dedication. But I can tell you that this Trump administration obviously is trying to distract from the Epstein files, right? Because since this war has gotten started, there's been very little conversation about the Epstein files, right? And so that was one way to distract. Give this war that's been going on, and Iran is doing everything that they can to make sure that they can have self-determination and keep their independence. Even though their leadership, or at least a section of their leadership, was assassinated by this government, I think the biggest thing is that these folks are just megalomaniac warmongers. And they'll go to war with anybody at any particular time. We've seen how they attacked folks in Minnesota. We see how they used the arm of the police agencies around this country to attack black folks, right? We've seen how they have went to war with brown folks. And so it's not a surprise on how they have even done this same philosophy the same way on an international level. I think the people of the world are sick and tired of the United States government imperialism. We're sick and tired. We're sick and tired of the conduct domestically. We're just sick and tired. My hope is that the people of the world will gain solidarity more so closer, uh, and basically give them a big middle finger, you know, and that sort of thing, and create a United States of Africa, right? Create a United States of Africa where we realize that the resources of this world, like the most important resources of this world, come from the African continent, right? Uh, this is what we got to realize. And so once we do on an international level, I think it'll be very easy to dismiss the United States government, the Israeli government, for all that they do, and any of their proxies, Taiwan, whatever it is that their proxy governments that they have in place to try to hold folks accountable. South Korea, Japan, wherever they may be, we'll drive them out. So that has to be the goal.
Now, you did mention that your dad was a military vet in Vietnam, and he saw things that kind of affected him. Uh, As you've gotten older, has there been anything that has been different in the way the United States conducts itself around the world? Has it been more imperialistic as time has gone on, or has it been pretty much the same?
I think the United States government has been at war for 230 years out of its 250-year existence. So it's always been at war. They've always pick somebody to be in conflict with, because that's what imperialism requires. The imperialism requires them to demonize a group of people, snatch their resources, and move on. Kill their leadership, replace their leadership with whom they deem as somebody they feel comfortable working with, like what they're attempting to do in Venezuela now, right? And what they've done in other countries. But it's always been war. I think the United States government is the worst country that's ever existed in humanity, simply because it has no humanity. It doesn't care about who suffers the pain or the hurt, but as so long as it can suck up the resources and the necessary labor to keep itself functioning, to keep itself existing. So that's why we're having a conversation about war now. And so we have organizations, or not organizations, but countries like Iran, who's attempted to stand against U.S. imperialism, U.S. aggression. And that's something I feel that my father he identified with after he got back from Vietnam, and where he saw how you know how this country treated other people around the world. He saw signs on the wall where it said, "Black man, go home. Black man, we don't have no war with you in Vietnam." He saw that in Vietnam. He told me. He saw where the Viet Cong left notes for them to realize that they didn't have any conflict with you. And furthermore, you saw it with Muhammad Ali's statements that Muhammad Ali made. So they more so echoed that, right? And so yeah, that to me those were contradictions of this government. I think we will always have contradictions as long as this government exists.
Now, you mentioned earlier that we need to hope to build some sort of rainbow coalition, have people from other political viewpoints kind of into the fold. Have you had a conversation with someone who didn't share your viewpoints, particularly when it comes to U.S. imperialism?
Yeah. I mean, we dealt with an organization called BEAR, Bureau Against Islamic Relations. BEAR was a right wing organization that in 2016 they was going to masjids and whatnot in religious places around the Dallas Fort Worth area, antagonizing folks with guns. And so they definitely had a difference of opinion of what we were trying to do at the particular time. And so they attempted to come with that same philosophy to South Dallas. We was able to organize a community against BEAR. They was right wing MAGA guys, right? And they felt like their philosophy was Islamophobia. That was their philosophy, and we basically was able to drive them out of South Dallas. And I think as far as the formation that's called BEAR, we was able to successfully end their organization, because after they ran across us, they had an internal combustion. They attempted to come to South Dallas 2 times, first on March 20th, 2016, and the second time on April 2nd, 2016. And both times we were able to run them out. And there's a documentary that was produced by the BBC that talked about that particular situation, and how we were able to do that. And even the Dallas Police Department didn't want to deal with them because, like I said, uh, we had over 600 people out there, 700 people out there. But these were folks that disagreed with our perspective. And this, not only was it black folks, it was brown folks, white folks, whoever was out there, poor folks, people that was what I call middle politics folks, and those are affluent black folks that were out there. So it was across class unification, if you will. And so we were able to drive Bear out. But Bear had his philosophy. And I always said, you know what? If Bear would have come with a pen and paper, they probably would have been more so better received than bringing an AR-15 or AK-47 or AK-74, whatever they had. They would have been more received if they would have come in that way and have conversation with folks versus with the intimidation, especially with the women and children.
You went over it, but I kind of want to know, how did you guys find out about Bear, how they were going to stage this sort of protest, and just take me through that whole thing?
Oh, it's pretty simple. Uh, the media being the media, right? The BBC had reached out and gave a conversation to me, right? And they said, "Hey, uh, have you heard of Bear?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've seen Bear on the news. Before this, I seen him on the news, right, in Irving and Richardson and whatnot." And they said, they're planning on going to come to South Dallas, right? And they actually gave us the time and the date. This is the BBC. But they did this for ratings, right? The BBC was trying to promote rating as whatever narrative that they was trying to put out, and so they essentially set these guys up. Then there was some online back and forth between some folks that was affiliated with us and them, and they were saying how they was going to come to South Dallas and they was going to come regardless. And on March 20th, 2016, we organized over 80 armed individuals to stand in front of the mosque at that particular time, and they actually didn't show up. Now, in the BBC documentary, they say they didn't show up because the Dallas police told them they didn't show up. So this is March 20th. So we took that as a victory. So imagine us standing, waiting for them to come, and they didn't show up. And I actually have this on my YouTube.
Damn.
They didn't show up at all, and so in the documentary shows how they were having internal conflict about the fact that they didn't show up, and then so they decided, okay, since they didn't show up on March 20th, okay, let's try for April 2nd, and so they had another group, another media outlet documenting them on April 2nd, and so they actually attempted to show up on April 2nd. But this time we, instead of it just being us, which it was the first time, we decided to get the community involved, and so we passed out a couple thousand flyers to the community in South Dallas, and folks from the community actually showed up. But not only did they show up, the police showed up with helicopters, armored vehicles, snipers, and all this type of jazz was going on, and so they had police protection from whatever their starting point was. They had police protection all the way up until they got to the point of South Dallas. Now, personally, I never seen them get out of their vehicles, but I did see a documentary, part of that documentary that showed them getting out their vehicle. But it was so many people there you couldn't see, and so we had different people that was just really waiting on them. And Dallas Police Department told them that it was really unsafe for them to be in this space at that particular time, that they couldn't necessarily contain folks in South Dallas per se, even though these guys had weapons or whatnot. And so that was the perspective there, but I'd never seen them. So they get escorted there, and they're kind of standing. Apparently, they're standing in the parking lot wherever they at. They never made it to the point where they wanted to protest, and so Dallas police told them get back in their vehicles and leave for safety purposes. And so they left. Never heard of them again. Now I'm sure that those same individuals probably have joined other groups, especially now, right? Right. What's his name? Right. I can't remember his last. I can't remember his first name. Right. Right was his last name. Right. He was the leader. He was the David Wright. That's his name. David Wright. He was their spokesperson, leader, whatever he was. But yeah, the Bear didn't exist after that. And the documentary showed how they just had this internal conflict after that they felt that they got humiliated by what we were doing in South Dallas. I'm talking about Guerrilla Mainframe at that particular time. I'm talking about the Huey P. Newton Gun Club at that particular time. That's the we. So that's what we was able to do.
Now, this is just my ignorance. What the hell were a bunch of right-wingers thinking when they thought they'd go into South Dallas and protest? Like, they had to know it was going to be bad.
Look, what they were trying to do at that particular time is the same thing that Chud the Builder is trying to do now, which is try to get as much attention to whatever cause that they felt they were fighting for, and doing it in the most extreme and flagrant way. So Chud the Builder, he's walked around Nashville giving folks the N-word, right? And that's flagrant and extreme from his perspective. And the same thing with Bear. They felt that the ultimate prize was to be able to go to South Dallas, where black folks and black and brown folks are at, and be able to do the same exact thing that Chud the Builder. They have no different philosophy than Chud the Builder has. Their whole position is flagrant, is dismissive, and is disrespectful. And so that's basically what they were looking for. They wanted to whatever they can do to get them the most ratings, the most views, potentially some finances and some leverage and some notoriety. That's what Bear was looking for. That's what David Wright, and as I said then, David Wright and his band of idiots, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, they're definitely shock jocks, but for like right wing activists with AK-47s. That's that's the parallel there. What were some of your other proud accomplishments as an activist in the Dallas area?
My proud accomplishments was first and foremost was the friend of Rakim Balogun, who is has been a close comrade of mine for, I would say, close to 15 years, 16 years. They arrested him under the Black Identity Extremist label, and we was able to free him from the federal government holdings within 6 months and charges dropped. That was for me. That was a champion moment. That's first one, and then the second one was the renaming of Botham John Boulevard. No, excuse me, the renaming of Lamar Street to Botham John. Um, what that showed from us is that we're not just militant guys, but we actually know how to navigate City Hall. And just here recently, um, we were noticing that along the freeway that some freeway signs, particularly on Interstate 45 north and southbound, and off of I-30, and what's the other one? One other freeway I'm missing, but uh, yeah, so they're still it was still saying Lamar Street, still says Lamar Street. And so just here last week, through the lobbying of Mr. Adam Bowser, we were able to get the city of Dallas to agree to spend over $180,000 to update the remaining signs that they were supposed to 5.5 years ago. So we've held their feet to the fire, if you will, and we're grateful that they understood that very quickly, that the error that they have made. And so just highlighting Botham John, particularly renaming Lamar to Botham John, as folks realize uh, that's right on the same street as the police headquarters. So imagine
Mhm.
being a police officer driving on Bottom John Boulevard and having to driving on Lamar, what was Lamar Street, now Bottom John Boulevard, who was a victim of police brutality as of September 2018. And so, that's something that I can take some pride in and say I played a part in that. And finally, the to me, me knowing Fahim J. Minka, who was the coordinator of the Black Panther Party here in Dallas in 1973, from 1973 to 1978. And before that, he was part of SNCC. Uh, Being able to rename College Park in his honor and do that for his family and his comrades, Diane Ragsdale, Marlon Clark, Akintunde Funzo, and so many Leroy Haynes, Skip Shockley, Charles Hillman, Charles Beasley, the greats that Ernest Macmillan, who just passed about a month ago. Like, we want to uphold the greats. And so the thing what I want folks to know about Yafeuh Balogun is this: is that I am absolutely for the people, for the community. I don't care about folks' background, whatnot. I don't care if I disagree with you, but I know we got some common ground. What I want folks to know about your fellow Lagoon is that I'm about uplifting the elders, right? And then when I'm talking about elders, I'm talking about the elders in the community. Um, and so this is why I have a relationship with Marvin Crenshaw, right? Who is Marvin Crenshaw? Marvin Crenshaw helped create the structure of the government along with Roy Williams, right? Before that, it was I think it was it was more so of an at-large type of form of government, whereas folks didn't have representation. And so Marvin Crenshaw and Roy Williams, filed a lawsuit and basically created the 14-1. And so I think that these stories need to be told. And oftentimes in our generation and even the generation under me, they don't know their story about Marvin Crenshaw. They don't know who Fahim Minka was, right? I had a resident in Holly Hill just tell me the other day. They was like, "What's the name of this park?" They was talking to him about it. They knew I played a part in it, they didn't know the name of it. And so I had to tell him Fahim Minka. But guess what? As time goes along, folks are going to become more familiar with the sacrifices of Fahim J. Minka and what he meant for this particular generation, which I believe that we had to tell the city, we had to tell the residents, we had to tell the community about these sacrifices of these folks that's been doing it way longer than us.
Absolutely, and you listed a bunch of legends there in the area. Fahim J. Menka, Botham John, who was killed by a police officer in his own apartment. For those who don't know about Botham John or about Dallas, Diane Ragsdale, who I met for the first time last year, instrumental in council member districts the way they're shaped now.
Right.
What do all of these legends? What do all of these activists share? What are some of the commonalities that these activists share that perhaps we can aspire to?
They want a better society. That's all. They want a better society, a more transparent society. I mean, it is noted that Fahim Minka in the latter 70s spent over 5,000 hours working on police brutality transparency issues. Like, so when Walter Tonga Higgins, who I consider to be the father of the modern day review board, police review board, which I believe he calls the oversight board, a lot of that was first initially done by Fahim Minka, and so with along him and the others, I think they just want a better community. I tend to be very Dallas focused. I could look at other places around the country, but I care about what's going on in the city that I'm from. Again, the city that my father's from, my mother's from, and I think that everybody in whole, whether they political or not, really just want what's best for the community. And what does that mean? Folks want to be safe. Folks want to have food. They want to have decent housing, right? They want their kids to be able to come outside. They want city infrastructure. As you see right now, we've been installing street lights in Highland Hills. We installed one. And you was a part of that in Sand Branch.
Absolutely.
We'll be installing another one this same time next month in Sand Branch with Christina right there. Because why? Because so folks, so there's a perspective uh, that Sand Branch is helpless, but no, there's people in Sand Branch that live in Sand Branch that's actually, you know, a part of the movement of keeping Sand Branch alive. Christina is probably the leading voice of folks in Sand Branch that's doing that, and especially on the ground. And so, yeah, so everybody wants to be safe and have a productive life, right? Nobody wants to, uh, have to necessarily get out of character or anything of that nature. That's all we want. And folks on the other side may want something similar to that, I believe.
Absolutely. All right, Yafeuh. So I have three questions for you. Actually,
Okay.
four. I've added a fourth one that I ask all of my guests here on the show. First one is best thing about what's going on in Dallas right now when it comes to activism, particularly, and what's the biggest room for improvement right now for Dallas?
Biggest room for improvement is transparency. That's the biggest room for improvement is transparency. We don't know what backdoor deals is going on. Miriam Adelson and folks like that are making moves that we may not necessarily be aware of. So transparency. Uh, the the best thing that's going on is that folks are waking up, and there's going to be more and more folks that's going to be waking up. And as the city and as the government as a whole uh, tightens their oppressive ways, there's going to be more and more folks waking up. So that's the best thing, the awareness of what's going on. Folks are going to be now so more aware than it probably any other time in history. Even I think even more so than in the '60s, as we see as this thing goes along. So that's my perspective.
And where do you see Dallas in 10 years?
I see Dallas as a very large metropolitan location, even larger than what it is now. Obviously, at AZ, the traffic is bad here in Dallas. I think it's going to get worse. I think more Fortune 500 type of organizations are going to come to Dallas. I think that a lot of development is going to take place. At that same time, what that means is that potentially more gentrification may happen. What that means is that the cost of living may go up. What that means is that the cost of resources may be harder to reach. And so what that does is that ensures that folks like you and me who are active on the ground have to be able to provide a number of services to the community, wherever that is, whatever you specialize in. And so I think the biggest thing, with all that being stated, is folks like us are going to be needed more so than we are now, right? Because cost of living, the gentrification, we see it existing right now in South Dallas. I'm also a realtor. I see um, I see the houses obviously in South Dallas $400,000 or $500,000, right? I know that the average person in South Dallas, at least at this moment, may not necessarily be able to afford a $500,000 home. I'm not sure where they'd be able to do that in anywhere, right? In too many places, right? So, so that's what I think is going on now.
All right. And was there anything in this episode that she wanted to share that she didn't get the chance to?
Yeah, well, I just kind of echo the point that I'm a son of the Nation of Islam, but I'm also a cousin of the original members of the Black Panther Party. And so when folks look at me in the future, just know that I'm guided by those principles. But at the same time, those principles are what has made me who I am, and I'm willing to work with anybody that wants to bring about change. I think that those in the city need infrastructure, and I was able to see that by us placing the street lights, right? Because the city of Dallas didn't want to respond to our request to put street lights, and so what we did, we installed street lights on our own, right? I see that the city of Dallas doesn't want to give water to Sand Branch, and so through Derek Avery and other groups fighting to bring water to Sand Branch, we're going to assist them with working to get water to Sand Branch. That's on a mutual aid level, and that's on a permanent solution level. Not only do we want to bring water, but we want to provide a permanent solution. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm very uh, I want to bring victories. I'm not much of a protester. I'm about trying to bring about solutions. So number one, freedom of my friend Raquel Balogun. Two, the extension of Botham John Boulevard, the south end. We're now advocating for the north end, right? We're gonna about to start publicly advocating for the north end of Lamar to be renamed into Botham John. What does that run us to? That we run into Miriam Adelson. We run into the convention center. We running into big business in North Dallas, right? We want to unify the street. The history of the city of Dallas has always been to divide the haves and those that have nots. And they have used freeway systems in a way to do that. And so in this particular case, Interstate 30 is the way that they've used to divide folks. And so we want to challenge that. So please tell District 14 council person that we want to have a conversation and we want to extend Lamar Street further north. I mean, we want to extend Botham John Street further north, right? We uh, want to unify the community.
Yep. District 14 being Paul Ridley, who
Oh,
represents
really?
large
Yep,
parts of downtown. Yep.
yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Absolutely. Now, Yafeuh, you are big online. So where can people find you online?
Uh, they could the street reporter Yafeuh Balogun is where they can find me. Street reporter, or they can Google Yafeuh Balogun and something to pop up. I would like folks to, and I don't have one with me, but they can purchase my book. Uh, my book is entitled "We Are Balogun." We are Balogun, just like my last name. We are Balogun, Balogun. They can purchase my book. It's only $21, and I kind of go in detail about the things that I'm discussing now. I think it's important. I'm in that book. I'm basically giving a little bit of detail. Oh, here the book is right here. We are Balagoon. This is actually this is actually the day that we dealt with Bear. So this is actually
Mm.
me. This is what I looked like 10 years ago. Yeah. This is what I looked like 10 years ago. And this is what a brother of mine named Kamal. And so you see the community behind us, at least there. And so you can go get this book. It's 286 pages and it talks about my experiences organizing with Gorilla Mainframe, and being a co-founder of that organization or whatnot. And just pick it up. I'd be appreciative of that. I want to make sure that my kids know the other side of me, that they that they may not be fully aware of at this time because they're so young.
For sure, for sure. Well, we'll put that in the show notes for sure. Well, Yafeuh, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Folks, this has been Chronicles of a Dallas County Democrat. Like, share, subscribe. We out.